YouTube, we are back with some major news. Not really. We're talking about a potential Switch 2 port for Final Fantasy XVI. Very recently, of course, we had Final Fantasy XVI Shadow dropped onto Xbox Series X and S, and we also finally had it revealed that 7 Remake Integrate is coming to Xbox and also Switch 2 this winter. When it comes to the modern Final Fantasy games, excluding 7 Rebirth for now, that were PS5 exclusive at one point, 16 is the only one that's not on Switch 2, or at least coming to Switch 2 confirmed yet. Now, it's pretty much a given that it's coming to Switch 2 eventually, right? They seem to be wanting to put 16 onto every platform that they can, and with the shadow drop of 16 on another console finally on Xbox, it's all but confirmed, right, that it's going to probably come to Switch 2 at some point. We actually have the devs themselves now teasing it, or alluding to the fact that they want to do a Switch version of Final Fantasy XVI with their recent letter from the producer that they do for Final Fantasy XIV. We have a clip of them, I think, talking about this because somebody linked to it on Reset Era and it's timestamped. And you do hear Yoshida say Nintendo, so I'm assuming that's like the clip of it. But there's no subtitles or translations. But according to translations of this, people said that Yoshida says something like, all that's left is Nintendo, and then my hero's saying, I'll try my best.
マイクロソフトストア on Windows で好評発売中でございます。
カンペ読みやん。もうあとほら残るは任天堂さんだけです。嘘。本当だね。本当だね。
I believe somewhere in there we got the quote of it, and thank God somebody timestamped it, because if that is where they talk about it, like that was 3 hours and 22 minutes into that live stream. Like that would have taken me so goddamn long to skim through and find. Yeah, they obviously kind of laughed there at the end of that, and I think that's why some people are taking it as them kind of teasing it, not like hard confirmation of it. And I totally get that, but obviously like the plan is to put it on Switch 2, if they can, outside of like technical shit. Like if they just can't get 16 to work on Switch 2 for whatever reason, if the hardware can't handle it, whatever that might be, like obviously they're going to try to put it on the platform. Speaking of that, I've seen people kind of question the possibility of it working on Switch 2, because people talk about it like struggling on like their particular PCs, or that it struggled on PS5. I'll say from my personal experience, and I've had a lot of luck with this throughout my gaming life, I didn't really have any problems with it too much. Or really at all that I can think of when it comes to 16. Like, I've played through the game fully twice, right? My initial playthrough around the time that it came out, and then I took a break from it for almost a year, and then came back to it like late last year, and hopped back into it and finished the platinum on it and stuff like that, and did a second run through, obviously, on the Final Fantasy difficulty or whatever. And through 2 full playthroughs of the game, you know, probably pushing maybe 100 hours or something like that, I don't know. Like, I don't think I had any, you know, stuttering, any lagging, any frame drops or anything. I play in performance mode with every game anyways on the PS5, but I don't recall there being any problems at all. People still seen somebody mention on Reddit that like certain boss fights or something on 16 were causing like PS5s to overheat around like launch or something like that, which I never experienced either. I actually have never experienced that until here lately. If you guys happen to follow me on Twitter, I've been playing through Death Stranding Director's Cut here lately, and that's the first time I've ever had my PS5 overheat, and it's done it quite often. It's only possible that it could be on my end. Maybe the PS5 needs to be cleaned, right? But that's just the first time I've ever experienced it. Speaking of Death Stranding, bit of a side note, what an amazing game. It's definitely repetitive in terms of the gameplay, right? Of what you do, delivering shit to all the different locations and shit. But putting the gameplay aside, which is still fun for what it is, the story is fucking amazing. And like the gameplay experience itself, the experience of what you're doing in the world is pretty interesting. But that story was fucking great. Anyways, getting back on topic, whether or not, you know, 16 can work on the Switch 2, that's something I don't know. I don't know like the inside out of like the Switch 2 from a technical aspect that I'm sure a lot of you know, whether or not the Switch 2 could even handle it. And that's something that people are questioning, whether or not, because like the CPU is apparently something that 16 uses a lot, right? And that's like the weakest part of the Switch 2 according to people on Reddit. So whether or not the CPU within the Switch 2 can handle Final Fantasy 16, I guess is kind of the question, or at least one of the questions. I assume similar to when they brought particular games to the Switch 1, they're kind of dumbing certain games down that they're bringing to Switch 2, right? Because it's definitely not as powerful as like a PS5 or a Series X. Maybe they can lower like the graphics or something on 16 and other things like that to kind of like try to make it work on Switch 2. I will say it's a bit weird how they're handling these PS5 exclusive Final Fantasy games coming to their consoles. And why I say that is they announced months ago, I think like in April, that, you know, Remake Integrate was coming to Switch 2, right? And then months later, Summer Game Fest with the Xbox showcase, they finally announced that, you know, Remake Integrate is also coming to Xbox, and that also that and the Switch 2 version are coming out in winter. They didn't confirm like a date or whether or not they're going to come out on the same day. And then we had the shadow drop of 16 on Xbox. Now they're talking about a potential Switch 2 version, right? And it's all just kind of mixed up because you announce, you know, Remake for Switch first, and then you announce Xbox, and now you're shadow dropping 16 on Xbox and talking about a Switch version. It's like, what are we doing exactly? Considering we're not getting Remake on the Switch or Xbox until winter later this year, maybe even potentially early next year, like the shadow drop for 16 probably should have been Switch 2. Like the early in the life cycle where there's technically less games for the Switch 2, that'd probably been the best time to shadow drop it. Really kind of the video, my dudes. Just want to cover this, kind of talk about it a bit. The devs teasing 16 coming to Switch 2. Not that we even really need them to do that, because obviously that is the plan. If the game can work on the console, they're going to put it there for sure. Try to tap into that Nintendo market. What are your thoughts, of course, on 16 on the Switch 2? Do you think the console can handle it? Are you interested, if you're somebody that has bought a Switch 2, on playing 16 on the Switch 2? I'm also very curious how these games are going to do on that platform, right? We obviously have, kind of mixed info, I suppose, on how, 16 is doing on Xbox, right? But I'm very curious, later this year, once we get Remake Integrate. It's a very old game, so, if it doesn't do well, I'm not surprised. But I'm very curious how well, Remake Integrate is going to do on Switch 2, and also eventually 16, if that does indeed happen. Other my dudes, that's the video. Subscribe channel if you guys are new. Social networks in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, @DaveYT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Rogaine, or leave it like Cobain.